Good morning, great Americans. It's another great American video from Kentucky. It is July 12th, 2026. Just a quick comment on this is actually, well, it's just a quick comment on police officers and police officers' responsibilities and a sort of a comparison with the obligation and the standards that we hold military military personnel too. So you may remember not too long ago there was a item in the news about the seditious five. So there were five Democrats who were trying to pervert and twist the law to get they were trying to get military people to disobey Trump's orders, which was an act of sedition, and they really belong in prison for that. However, what they were using as a basis was actually a good law, which they were just perverting and twisting into something else completely. But it is a good law, which is that military personnel are bound to disobey unlawful orders. Now, the spirit in which this law was created was, I think it sort of had its genesis in events of Vietnam, because you remember, sadly, there were one or two rogue officers or whatever. They committed some pretty bad acts in Vietnam. So for example, hypothetically, if you're out in you're in a war zone and you're out on patrol and you go by a village that you think has enemy personnel, if the person in charge of the patrol, the lieutenant or whatever, if he says, "I want you to kill all the women and children," well, I mean, it's obviously an illegal order. You just can't walk into a village and indiscriminately kill the women and children just for the sake of doing it. I mean, that's insane. Now that's sort of an extreme example, but I'm just trying to make a point that is quite obvious an illegal order. So if you walked into a village and your lieutenant told you to do that, you as a soldier, you would be obliged to say, I cannot obey that order, sir. That's an illegal order. Okay. So that's really the meaning of it. It's not to do with the seditious five we're trying to do. They were trying to find ways to grind down Trump's policies on deporting illegal aliens. That was just a whole other thing. Anyway, yeah. So in a war zone, if you're a soldier and your lieutenant or captain or whatever orders you to do just something insane, like kill all the babies, something crazy. Well, I guess a Democrat wouldn't mind that too much, but if they order you to do something crazy, like, you are bound to disobey. Okay, so my thought for today is, why don't we have, or we should have, something similar for police officers? Now, I realize that this is already problematic because with the military, they're under federal jurisdiction, and it's easy to pass a law because it's like one thing, one organization, federal government, military, all under the Department of Defense and that type of thing. Whereas with police officers, you've got millions, I mean, literally, not millions maybe, but literally thousands of jurisdictions. You've got the local police in every city and town across America. I don't know how many cities and towns there are in America. I assume that it's in the thousands, tens of thousands. I don't know. And then you've got your sheriffs in every county and parish in America, so that's a lot more, right? And then you got your highway patrol and other state. So you got a lot, right? Thousands. And so it's problematic. I understand that. But still, I believe that there should be a law that police officers are bound to do the same thing that soldiers are, which is to disobey orders. Now, here's what I'm thinking of. Recently, as we all know, in blue states, governors and mayors have been ordering police officers to literally work against federal law enforcement, like actually hinder them, and which in so doing, they're basically protecting criminals. Now, I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little old fashioned, but that seems to be the opposite of what police officers are supposed to do. Police officers are supposed to enforce the law, right? Now, I realize, again, we're getting into the whole federal law versus local law and blah, 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 and all that. But look, let's keep it real, shall we? The law of the land is the law of the land. Now, maybe I should put this in personal terms. If I was a police officer and I was ordered to ignore the law and not assist a fellow law enforcement officer, and in so doing, actually aiding and abetting criminals, I'd be like, I can't do that, man. That's ridiculous. That's not the spirit of. I mean, I signed up to enforce the law and make societies safer for good law-abiding citizens. You're actually asking me to make society unsafe by protecting illegal aliens and criminals and hindering federal law enforcement. I didn't sign up to make society unsafe. I signed up to make society safe. So I believe that police officers should be obliged to, just like with the military, they should be obliged to say no to that kind of order. So, if the mayor or the governor says, do not help ICE, for example, do not help the FBI, do not help ICE, police officers should say, no, fuck you. I'm going to assist them if they ask for my assistance. So that's the gist of it, right? Because it just makes sense. You're law enforcement, and you you're there to enforce the law. What do I care if it's a federal law or a state law or whatever? I think this whole, and I realize that it's, we have the United States in many ways has imperfect systems, which, even though they're imperfect, very often they're better than anything else. It's like capitalism. Uh, uh, I forget who it was who once said that the capitalism is a terrible system, except for the fact that it's better than all the other ones. Or democracy is sloppy. Or one of the reasons, one of the things about checks and balances is that even though it slows things, people go crazy. It's like, we can't get anything done. There's gridlock in Washington. Even though that can be maddening, that's actually a built-in safety feature to try to prevent any one person from like doing what Hitler did and just decide to take it all. And I realize that having different jurisdictions is very similar, right? You got local police for local laws, state police for state laws. I get it, right? I mean, I get it's imperfect, but there needs to be some sort of red line, right? Where no matter what jurisdiction you serve in, if you are literally being ordered to turn a blind eye to request for assistance from federal law, I mean, from fellow law enforcement, regardless of their jurisdiction. If you're being asked to turn a blind eye to requests for assistance, and in so doing, you're actually aiding or you're actually helping criminals get away with their crime, that needs to be a red line. It just needs to be a red line. And, you know, the chief of police. So, I mean, for example, let me just give you, let's see. So, uh, we all know the governor, Kathy Hochul, signed legislation in New York to prevent, this was in 2026, to prevent law enforcement. I'm reading here, prevent local law. Okay. It, she signed legislations to prevent local law enforcement from being deputized by ICE. Uh, Now, obviously, someone was like me was trying to figure out a way to get law enforcement to work on our side, and they thought, well, maybe we can deputize them. So she got ahead of it, and she signed a law that prevents local law enforcement from being deputized by ICE. So if I was a police, so I would, if I was the police chief, the chief of police for the New York City Police Department, I would say I'm not going to, I'm just not going to follow that law because you're asking me to, you're asking me to ignore requests for assistance from law enforcement, and you're asking me to actually help aid and abet criminals. And no police officer should be put in that position. So anyway, that's the thought for the today. See what you think about it. You know, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Please remember to sign up at our uh, Substack page for free. And I will see you in the next great American video. Adios, muchachos.